All right. Thank you so much for coming back with us. I am Jason Levine here with Hey DW.
Hey.
And Simone Smith. Great to have you back with us here on Adobe Live. And for the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking about, again, editing, and specifically one of the episodes that we kind of alluded to yesterday from your web series, That's My DJ. Please tell us where you're coming from in the chat. It is live and interactive. And because Simone's actually going to be breaking down this scene, we're going to show like a sort of before it was treated and then maybe an after and then break it down. What's really interesting about this is that it was all done in Premiere Pro. You didn't do any additional After Effects, you didn't do anything else. So from an editor's standpoint, it's quite outstanding. Like, it's really, really, really outstanding how you achieved all of this just inside the editing app without any VFX work at all. So outside of what you're doing in the editor, of course. So, so again, thank you so much for joining us. And hey, what's up, Vanessa? Hello, Priyanka from India. Hey, everyone. And yeah, we've got 2 hours. We got 2 hours together.
We got some time.
And yesterday was fun. Like, it was really cool to kind of see and understand the process of how this came together. I know we had a lot of questions and people afterwards I saw kind of talking about, yeah, just how do you get it together, how it came about, funding, the actors, and all the subtleties.
All the details kind of going into what it takes to develop an indie web series and the process, especially in post, because you're kind of on your own for the most part.
Right. On your own with hopefully lots of friendly people who are willing to do stuff, you know, on the cheap, when they can. Yeah. Until, of course, it's picked up by, which it eventually will be. I mean, and that's, I was saying this earlier, I wasn't even going to say it on the stream, but once you binge watch this, and you have to binge watch it, you will not be able to watch 1 or 2 and stop, I think, actually. I think that's built in. Yeah,
the structure I kind of went for with That's My DJ was the first couple episodes are like a minute and a half based off of, you know, we all have very short attention span these days. And kind of once you get into the story, it's based on addiction factor. You fall in love with the characters and what's going on. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're done the season.
I was actually going to say I'm pretty certain that Simone implanted some kind of ultrasonic pulse that actually forces you to keep watching. But that works too. That's fine. You can,
either or.
Whatever your
both.
description is.
Both.
Hello, Ebony Flash from Africa. Hey, Amy from Ann Arbor. Hello, Michael from Lagos. Wow, fantastic. Diego, Charlie. Very nice to have all of you here. All right. Oh, yes. So, Simone.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought, really, I don't want to talk so much.
Okay.
I really want us to get into it because I know we've got a lot to see here, and I love these kinds of things where you can really break it down and kind of show sort of the build up and before and after. So, if we want to cut to Simone's screen.
All right.
Yeah, and if you want, I can set it up. Shall we play the finished version first?
I think we should play the lesser version.
The lesser version?
And then see how it got awesomer.
Okay.
And then how to make it awesome.
Yeah.
So to set it up, this is from episode, what episode is this? It's all a
3
blur at this point. So season 3, episode 3. We were about 4 hours away from locking because we needed to get all of our deliverables to color and sound. And we were kind of going, we finally got locks for all of our music, which takes some time. And we went back to this scene and we're like, okay, it's working. But it's not riveting. It's not really captivating the intention of the character. How do we kind of make this better? And, you know, I kind of had the original idea of split screen, which is obviously super time consuming and you have to shoot it that way. I did shoot a lot of it that way, but because there's so many elements and things moving around in post that you kind of forget all of your intentions as you work through things. So we're gonna play the original cut that we had 4 hours before lock, before I kind of threw everything on its head.
Double layer thing happening there.
Port Moody.
So as you can see, there's a lot of elements and color, but it's, for me as a director, really wasn't breaking through to what I wanted to get to the audience, which was when you are editing or when you're working kind of by yourself with software and it's very technical, your brain's going 1,000 miles per hour, you're doing 10 different things at the same time, and with that it was very kind of one thing after the other. So now we're going to show you what we ended up doing, which is way shorter, way faster, way more crazy, but I think hits the nail on the head.
And
so
I was going to try and actually quote, I can't remember the line that he says when Megan comes back in, it's missing that thing, but it wasn't that thing, right? He says another word, right? Or does he say that thing? It's missing that thing.
that thing, that hook.
That thing, that hook, right.
Yeah.
The lightning, that's it.
Yeah.
Check this out.
So obviously the difference between where we were at and then 4 hours later is like night and day. And for me, I love this scene. We made it shorter, we made it tighter, it totally hits all the notes. It's so visually like appetizing.
And what's funny too, actually, and I seeing sort of the first version now, you're right, it's the same music, and somehow the music even feels different because I think there's so much in time with the visual too, like you're hanging on the whole time.
Right.
Whereas before, right, you're riding it.
Yeah.
This you're on the edge.
You're hitting it and then you're out.
Right. Yeah. Edgy.
Yeah, and for me, the great thing about this music is it's so percussive.
So percussive,
and it really works when being a producer and if you're creating music like I do. You know, that's kind of where your brain is always at. You're always thinking in rhythm and times and really solid beats. So I really wanted the visuals to line up with that naturally. So Simone is going to jump into this and kind of show how we started to break this up and how we went into full split screen mode. I think the first kind of vision that I had, if you want to kind of go to that first one, was the jumping in, which is very simple to do and extremely effective and fun.
So initially it just played out kind of as one shot. So what we did for these guys is it's all the same shot duplicated, but just the scale is changed by 20% increments. So if we look at our effect controls, we go to 80%, then to 60%, then we pop back out. So you see here, these are the disabled clips, so if you were to turn that on, that's just the same guy there. And back to 80, then 60, and so on. So that way it's just the perfect increment each time, keeping it consistent. Same thing with these shots. And again, it's hitting those cuts in exactly on the beat too. So it's a total marriage of the music and image.
Now I wanted to ask you, because just noticing this now, I can't really see. You don't even have markers. So are you just lining it up with the waveform?
Waveform and just listening and finding that exact frame. We're very frame anal when we're working.
Yes.
Just leave that right there. No markers for the beat?
No markers
it's
for the beat.
Craziness.
Yeah.
She's a drummer, so if it's off,
no, I know. Hey, listen.
She'll call it.
I dig it. I get it. But I mean, again, seeing a lot of editors do this. Even those that understand. Look, right. Obviously we edit music, so understandably so. But that seems really hard without even just for yourself. Like, okay, here.
Well, for this, we were in the room together, and so again, we were like 4 hours to lock.
Yeah.
And I was like, "How do you feel if we flip this scene on its head and go split screen for all of it?" And I think your reaction was, "Yeah, sure."
What's gonna
happen? I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Just trust me. Let's try one thing." And I think we tried this. and we tried another one, and Simone really fell in love with it, and that's the direction we went in. But I can usually tell if we're like a frame off when it comes to the
yeah, absolutely. And that's something interesting too on a technical nerdy note for those of you who are like wanting to get into this, is that of course we're talking about frames per second versus samples per second. So Premiere, like all editors, has the function where you can actually go into what we call here time units if you needed to slip because it wasn't actually falling on the beat because you're in between frames. Which is okay, you can do that, but be careful because if you leave it in that mode, things can get very messy very quickly.
Like, why does this have?
Even someone's commenting. I always use waveforms too because I was a DJ, which is if you're really kind of connected to the music and you're from the music world, then it's sometimes with editing, yes, being technical and using markers is great, but there is something to kind of trusting your gut as an artist and knowing when to make those natural kind of cuts.
Yeah. And I've, to be honest, with all the editors we've seen and worked with, I've never seen anyone show something, not this, but something where they're cutting really to the pulse without markers.
Yeah.
So.
First time.
Yeah.
First
you know,
time.
you cut stuff and then they're misplaced.
Sure, and there's slipping and sliding for sure. Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay.
Well, let's jump to the next.
To get the gist of the duping
Popping in
and
and out.
scaling. So this guy.
So let's just play that one just so everybody can see.
So it's sort of like a letterboxing using other footage. So this is our bottom layer. You can see we nudged it down a bit to get the eyes in center frame. And then the top layer is just a crop and moving it around. So if we were to turn that off, that's the full frame. And then same with this guy. So it's just a crop and move around. It's like arts and crafts, cutting pieces together. And
making a collage.
This one, similar thing, but this time using the same shot as the sort of letterbox effect.
I want to emphasize again for those who are joining new today, like these color effects, that's how it was lit. This isn't after the fact. Great, like, right? This
is
lit.
after it's graded.
No, but I mean, what you're seeing, right, it's graded, but I mean, the colors effectively that you're seeing here, you lit it this way while you were filming him, you know, these close-ups.
So how we actually shot this scene was we put our lead actor, Jade Hasune, against a white wall.
Right.
And we kind of put like a camera on a slider that would go back and forth, and we just did so many different things. We had like a fog machine going, we have different lights going, we'd make him close his eyes and then do his, really close up of his pupil kind of like getting bigger. My inspiration for this scene was very much Requiem for a Dream. All of those montages where we're kind of really like micro close up, macro rather.
Yes, right.
And
we know what you meant.
Yeah.
Good question. That's right. Actually, it does. Yes.
But yeah, so that was kind of the inspiration for the scene. So kind of just like bringing all of this together and finding our what works.
So just play this section out. So that's the other thing too, is you can have them come on at the same time, different times, like whatever is fitting the beat there. So this is just a straight up normal shot.
Now what about the motion just before there where it's sort of sliding into the UI of the So is that camera or that's in Premiere where you were doing that motion?
That's all camera.
That's camera. Okay. Again, like pre-production here.
Yes, pre-production. You want to try to get as much as you can. If you can do everything on set and in camera, that's the way to go. And because then when you're in post, you're really just like polishing and tightening everything up, and you're not relying on something like, can it happen? Will it happen? All of a sudden, you're 2 weeks over your deadline and panicking, which you don't want to do.
Yeah. Or will it look good or bad? You know if it's already done in camera.
Right, that it's going to work.
Yeah, so this is just shooting Ableton on a monitor.
Yep.
Yeah. And in a later scene, we have screen capture that we use as an overlay.
Okay.
You can look at that later.
And then we could probably get to that scene after.
Yeah. So
I loved this bit too here. That was really cool.
This is one of my favorites.
Even I don't remember. What do we do with this? Okay, so this is the bottom layer now has a keyframe motion on it. Look at our effect controls, so you can see we are just positioning it down, so it's moving around, scale staying the same, and then another shot with our crop to make it a letterbox, and same on top. So what you get is him sort of entering the frame as that animation's happening
cool.
beneath the letterbox layers.
That's right.
like
Says the director of
I'm
her own
down.
stuff. Right.
So cool.
Right. God, isn't this awesome? I love this show.
I love split screen.
Right. No, it is. And you know what's funny? It's like the fact that you said he was shot on the white wall. That's kind of one. Now I'm seeing it, but again, when every time you cut back to sort of the wider shot when he's kind of it doesn't translate because there's so much color and movement.
Exactly.
You're just in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super effective.
So this is just more of that stuff, but just scrolling fast. So yeah, there isn't even a speed effect on this one. It's just going
So
fast.
what we did was we got a friend to screen capture them working in Ableton and save it as a MOV file. And then we took that MOV file, we played it on a computer, and what I did was I was like scrubbing through it really fast while my DP was just filming the screen, which gave it kind of its own effect. So when we brought it into post, it kind of had its own thing.
Right.
Yeah, so you end up getting like this cool, almost ghosting effect that had you just applied a speed effect wouldn't be there. That sort of
Wouldn't really have it. Yeah.
almost organic quality.
Right. And again, you could do that in After Effects with some motion blur.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Or in camera.
or in,
Done.
camera.
There you go.
Exactly.
This one. So similar to the other crop letterbox, but now we're kind of doing a pillar box thing. So again, it's the same shot that's just duplicated on multiple layers. So this is the main guy. And we added this one on the left, which is also just a crop and position. So move it over and then just crop out that empty space. And then same on the top. So all the same shot, just duped and cropped and moved around. And then, so to make it easier, you can see there's all of these disabled clips. So in theory, I would have, just to show you, have dragged all of this out as its own sort of thing and then cut away parts of it. So it would sit like that versus...
And that little push there, was that also a scale effect or?
I believe that was in camera.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So again,
I know, it's
you're tripping it up here because you're
marriage
really
of the two.
varying.
Yeah.
That's really super cool. I love too how you just have like perfect symmetry with like the edges of the headphones in that pillar box frame. It's really,
It's very clean.
it's very clean and
Yeah, so I mean
designed perfect. Yeah.
these are all like almost 1 to 2 frame shots here, so it's getting crazy. These are just straight up normal shots, just cut quickly. No effects on those ones.
Ooh, yeah, this one's so good.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
I think this is the most we do the scale in and out thing.
Yeah.
We're on to 4 levels there, so
Again, going with the music and the percussion that we're hearing and the track that we use.
yeah. So yeah, we're down to, this is 40% scale, 60, 80, 100. So this is where it gets real crazy.
This one, this one was tough.
This one's like, go take a walk for 10 while.
Right.
Yeah, I think we did take a walk when we were doing this one.
You see, it's not totally perfect. Again, this is the offline, so there's a little bit of overlapping around here.
Did you use any guides for that?
No, I mean,
Surely you used a Photoshop overlay of some kind.
I just pulled up this guy and then eyeballed it. Yeah. So you can see like
Wild West
there's
over here.
right.
there's our center, using the center and center
Okay,
to
all right,
align it.
little bit,
so
yeah.
a bit of help. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really even talking about the action save, title save, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
that's,
it's
all right.
there. It's faster. You just
That's super
throw that up.
impressive. It's crazy.
So yeah, these are all 60% scale and then cropping top and bottom. Yeah, similar thing. So yeah, mostly just eyeballed it, adjusting the crop factor, like that. Yeah, so I think that's the most layers we have at any point in this thing. We're up to 6 layers here.
Right, that's crazy.
So now this is the Ableton stuff, but with a speed effect. So this is a 400% speed on this one. So no ghosting, but you're getting the fast thing. So
And like how you're getting a little bit of the moraine from filming the monitor, which somebody on a recent stream was asking, like, well, why not just use the screen cap? But then it's like it's it's so clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's too clean,
Yeah.
and for me, it's, you know, we're supposed to be in this character's POV and
Right.
what it feels like to be alone, isolated, staring at a computer screen, and your eyes start to go weird. So to kind of have that effect on the monitor will help kind of give that audience that
something
feel.
that sometimes you're like, no, pull out a bit more. It's meringue.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, no, that you
Lean
do.
in.
You feel it, right? Like, anyone who's sat, you know, in front of your monitor for, you know, a couple hours knows just how painful and how common that is.
Yeah.
Things get
So
blurry.
to lose your mind a little bit, which
right,
is what we
yeah.
wanted the character to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, to answer that question about math, you could, but I'm not a math guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Winging it.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Megan's here. What is up, Megan Keene? So great to see you. Yeah. So comfortable in career. You see, I keep throwing these things out. No guides, no markers. Nope.
Winging it. All right, so drugs.
Yes.
We have the turbulent displace filter on here. So we experimented with pretty much every filter in Premiere just
Yeah.
to really push it and see what we can do to kind of make it feel otherworldly.
Right.
This was the winner.
Yeah, and we didn't want it to feel so like, oh, there's clearly an effect on this, and we didn't want it to be normal, so we were kind of looking for that in between to be like, to affect the audience in a way where it's like something's not right, but we can't put our finger on it, and then we're on to the next thing. So this is what really worked out
Yeah,
for us.
so you get that, you can see the distortion there on the finger
Yep.
and the nose,
Yep.
and it's moving around.
And I love that right there, where you kind of cut to no colored lighting there, just sort of natural. You know, it looks like daylight, right?
Yeah.
You know, 5500 or something. Love that for that moment. I don't know why it looks like it's like a flag. You know,
Yeah.
something just so perfect about it.
This
That
is
shot too, right there. That frame
So
right
much
there.
fake drugs on this. It's Tums. It's actually Tums.
Is it
ketchup.
Tums?
It's Minty Tums.
Minty Tums.
Yeah.
Oh
Well, I know it
boy.
was minty.
Oh yeah, he requested minty.
Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
it's-
Reese just asked that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
yes. So this one is another of the letterbox crop thing. So this is the frame on the bottom and the top.
Now, DW, I know you said you were in there when Simone was cutting this. So, like, did you have in mind how much of this you wanted to do? Because I would think, as a director, you're also kind of trying to be conscious of don't overdo it, right? I mean, it's a short scene, so but right.
I knew I
mean,
wanted to shorten it, and I knew there were a couple like visual aesthetics where I'm like, I want Ableton on top, and then the eyes, and then the Ableton on the bottom.
Right.
So there was some stuff I was able to see. We're coming up to another one where I really loved, where it's just like eyes and mouth,
Right.
and it looks super weird. So it was kind of watching her cut things together. I would spot a section, and I'd be like, okay, let's try this. And then I remember I went for a walk at one point in time because we did 2 or 3, and I was like, okay, now you pull something out of your butt,
Right.
and we'll see what that looks like. And I came back, she ended up doing that like 6
Right. Okay.
6 one,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, oh shit, all right. Like,
Getting
we're
crazy.
rolling.
So this is just a look up, which is kind of throwing us to this shot of him looking at the monitor. This guy is, there's a few things going on here. We have 2 layers. The bottom one is a reverse shot of the same shot on the top layer.
Oh, okay.
And we're using the strobe light effect. Which
okay.
is-
I was going to ask you, like, are
yeah.
you cutting out frames or what? Yeah, what were
Yes.
you doing there?
So
Okay.
without the strobe light effect, it's the exact same shot playing
Right.
forwards. Strobe light basically is going to make every alternate frame transparent. So it's revealing the reverse playback layer underneath. So what you get is this stuttery thing because it's moving forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards.
super pro editor tip and trick right there.
Yep.
That's really cool.
So here's another one.
Which is also another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So weird. He
It's
just looks
so
so
weird.
distorted
Some
and
creepy,
weird.
distorted weirdness to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, this is the exact same principles as the letterboxing one. It's just we're doing 2 shots instead of 3 here.
Right.
Seeing AJ has a question. How many versions of the edit do you typically go through? So in
see.
the film world, we start with an assembly, which the editor kind of goes away, and they cut together what they think the director would want, and then you kind of jump into fine cuts and rough cuts, and hopefully to picture lock. But how many did
So
we
we
end up at?
had the assembly, director's cut, rough cut, fine cut, 1, 2, 3, proposed picture lock, and then picture lock.
So was that what?
So
6, 5, 5, 6?
8.
8.
Yeah.
Eight cuts.
There you
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's also good to step away.
Right, step
from
away,
things.
review.
Review, and then to also get your peers to watch it and get notes. And kind of what I like to do is send it to a bunch of people I trust, other editors, and other people who aren't in film at all, to kind of get a good consensus. And I find that if everybody's kind of coming back with the same note, if they don't understand a scene or they were confused by something, that's what you got to flag, and then it gives us something to kind of go into the next cut with. It's like, this is a problem, we need to kind of figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. Always welcome criticism and feedback, because there's always something you're missing
or just didn't
makes sense to
see.
you.
Right. Or
Yeah.
Exactly.
So even though it's scary sometimes, you got to do it. So here we got some nests going on with this one. So on this shot, I kind of, to add a little of the in and out. So these are all keyframed. This sort of punching in and out motion. So the thing is, once you've keyframed a motion, if you want to add a motion to that shot, that's where the nest comes in. Because otherwise, if you start playing with the existing keyframes, it's going to mess up what you'd already set up. So in this nested guy, we're doing the 20% scale that we were doing earlier, but applying it to this the same shot underneath that has this sort of stuttery effect.
This is also where it's like, yep, shot on red. There's just something, you know, that eye is creepy.
And I'm just going to answer some people's questions. How long does a cut typically take you? I mean, we have 8 episodes per season, so some days we'll jump in, and for the shorter episodes, we'll kind of get through the entire season, or we'll focus on 1 or 2 episodes specifically. But how long does it take you to get through a cut?
I guess it depends on how much footage there is too. That's the longest part. Is like I watch every single frame that is shot, because you never know what you should. Miss. Yes,
this is why she is.
Yeah, none of this scrubbing and no. You gotta make sure you just sit down and I take notes as I watch, because I think it was Walter Murch said, like, that is the only time you have the same idea of what the audience is going to see. It's the only time you're a blank slate. So it's important you keep track of those initial thoughts and opinions, because you lose those so fast. So yeah, I think, like, after you're watching it, like, that's the longest part, is just the watching it. And then usually as I'm watching it, I'm already thinking of how it's going to cut together, and then that's the easy part.
Yeah, so the assembly usually takes the longest, because you're going through all the footage, and then the director will come in and I'll have a director's cut. So that also is a bit longer, but when you get into the fine cuts and you're getting closer and closer to picture lock, you're really just kind of trimming up specific scenes, getting notes from maybe executives or other producers or other peers to really try to trim up what you're trying to do. But overall, I'd say, what was our post process like? We took a couple breaks.
Yeah, there's a few long breaks.
But
so
if altogether it would have been like, what, 3 months, 3-4 months?
Probably if it were compressed.
Yeah. So 3-4 months to cut the entire season, and then after picture lock, it's locked, and a lot of people try to open picture lock up, which gives me anxiety. You should never open up picture lock. But it does go to color, and then it goes to sound. You do those 2 things kind of at the same time, and then you kind of come back together for the online, kind of put it together. And
you explained that yesterday, and that's why they can go out separately, because color doesn't require to have the sound finished, and vice versa. So,
we're usually listening to really awesome music when we're in color. My colorist has the best taste in music.
Right, okay.
So it's fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're into just back into real life in the story. So we're back in the original environment. No more effects or anything, kind of leaving us back into dialogue.
Yeah. So let's watch that scene one more time to kind of, now that we all know all the tricks, you can see. There it is.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fast,
It's
too,
fast,
which is
right.
great.
I think, yeah, this would only ever work with all of these elements working in conjunction together. If you just did a split screen once in the middle of the scene,
Right.
it just wouldn't
No.
make sense. It would just feel like, oh, that was just thrown in there for no reason. So, yeah, I think really, if you're going to do an effect and you're running with it, like really
Commit
run with
to it.
Yeah.
Commit to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And following that scene, we have just a shot with no cuts, and it's a one take with two of our actors. So I'm a big fan of juxtaposition. If you're gonna throw a montage at an audience and make them, kind of be overwhelmed with cuts, I kind of like to slow things down and make them really focus on what's important, which is the characters and the story. So.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said too, and I think this comes from anyone who's, whether you've done music editing, actual video editing, photo editing, that there's something so dynamic and relatable in this scene, and the frustration, right? And like that first part where his eyes are just reading left. I mean, I don't know, someone had done like a capture of one of our streams, and me and I think Paul Tranny were together, and we were both reviewing something, and they zoomed in. You could actually see our eyes doing just that. And we weren't even doing anything.
Yeah.
We weren't on just a time crunch,
Yeah.
And so you really just nailed it. And it's funny, Khaled is asking, where's After Effects? Yeah, they didn't do any After Effects here. That was kind of the setup, was that all of those visual effects Simone did right in Premiere, just with native stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Med, you're asking too, you're just moving to Premiere. Good color presets to get video clips shot on an iPhone cinematic look. There are dozens and dozens of them inside the Lumetri panel, which you can find if you go to the color workspace. And we have lots and lots of those. So it kind of just depends what you're looking for. But there are many. I personally, for iPhone stuff, I use a lot of the film stock emulation presets. They take the edge off, that like digital edge, sort of lower contrast, a bit warmer.
Cool.
Like that, yeah. Always add faded film. That's a good question too. Like, you kept this, and it's funny. You talk about montage scenes. I don't know if you have the scene with Hannah and Megan when they kind of they get together. Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably a good
but
thing.
it is
Yeah.
that's X-rated.
Yeah,
You have to be over 18 to watch that.
We did get a content flag, on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, an age restriction flag on yesterday's broadcast.
Yeah, they follow me around
Yeah,
YouTube
I bet
and
they
their
do.
flags. They're like, please hold flags.
You have that, and I have the decibel meter in any show that we do. Megan knows this firsthand. They're always like, okay. Did Paul Tranny let his hair grow out? Yes, I am Paul. I was just gonna say now. Oh, so that scene again, yeah. So just talking about like when you're gonna do the montage and commit, and there you have a lot of. First of all, well, I don't know if it's natural light, but you do have that sort of the daylight.
Yeah, I
this
think that we put a light outside. This is
Okay.
for season 2, episode 7. There's a big montage where it kind of goes through these two girls in a relationship, and it's a week and a half of their relationship or their love affair in probably a minute and a half.
right.
But it's extremely powerful, and kind of just being in script stage, it was interesting. A lot of my crew and my cast were they just had to trust me, because they're like, we don't know how this is going to cut together. It's just a page and a half of descriptions, and we don't really understand. But once I kind of shot listed and told my DP what we were doing, and kind of led my actors scene by scene where they were emotionally, it was a lot of natural light and kind of just showing what it's like to when you meet somebody and you have that chemistry.
And again, it's that relatable feeling. So whereas here it's like tension, frustration, anxiety. There it's lighting and everything. It's love, it's joy. The music obviously plays a huge role in that too.
Yes.
But it is that, and a bit of the time remit slow motion and stuff, but it's the light in that one in particular. Like here, where you have this darkness, and then it ends like in darkness.
Yeah, I think each season of That's My DJ has its own tone.
Right.
Season 3 is our darkest season. Obviously, it deals with substance abuse and loss, so we really wanted to kind of give that anxiety-ridden feel to everything, especially in this montage.
Super cool.
So we shot this montage and another montage at the exact same time, and originally they were 2 episodes apart. I think one was the next episode. He would come back into the studio and kind of keep working. But we found that these montages were too close together within kind of the episodes. So we ended up pulling it, and then we ended up bringing it back for episode 8. So, spoilers. in season 3, Sam loses a friend to an OD, so he goes through a mourning period. And when he kind of gets it back together again and realizes, you know, there is kind of life outside this mourning stage and people do love him and it's time to kind of get back on the horse, he decides to go back into the studio. So we moved this scene originally from, I believe, episode 4, and we moved it over and kind of rejigged it, and instead of it being another anxiety-ridden montage, we pushed it towards like a more positive, you know, he has it together, he's eating, he's not doing drugs anymore, he's on his game. So this is shot the exact same way as the other one. So yeah, let's jump into this guy. So it's funny how you can have kind of this, not the exact same footage, we weren't using the same footage, but that was the same setup, the same 2 hours that we shot all of that content, and how you can make such a different thing, where this is positive and it's smoother, and you know, that's all in post, that's all in the cut. So let's jump into kind of how we broke this down. Yeah,
so basically, I don't think there was ever a montage at this point in this episode.
No.
Right? So we've totally crafted this out of other stuff. So this is a shot of him walking in from episode 6, or the former episode 6, episode 5. So this is from like an entirely different scene that we stole that shot. Then into another scene. So similar location and everything, but again, never intended to be part of this episode, but it just totally worked for us.
By the way, was this actually a studio that you were, like someone's studio that you worked in?
Yeah, so this is a studio that kind of took me in as like the stray cat. I played drums at a morning rave there at one time, and they were just like, oh, you're a really good drummer, like you should come back and hang out. And then they found out that I'm in post-production, and they have a recording studio in there, and they work on like Carl Wolf's album and a bunch of different artists, and then there's also a production company in there too. So they kind of fell in love with me, and I hung out there. And while I was writing season 2 and season 3 of That's My DJ, I was like, well, it'd be interesting if these characters kind of worked at a studio like this. Also, they love me and they're going to give me this location for free. But they're amazing. Cylinder Sound, they're in Toronto at Queen and John, and Touchpoint Films, who is also our executive producer, they run out of there as well. So that's how I met all those guys. And they did the sound design and sound mix, Cylinder Sound, and then Touchpoint is the exec producer. Awesome. So yeah,
really cool.
We became a little family, but this is their
but it is a real location.
It is a real location,
not stage. By the way, Simone, so Kyle was just asking if you ever save any of your crops effects as presets. You ever do
no, I mean, in the case of that sequence, I might copy paste the effect,
the attributes,
But even then, you know, it's all relative to the shot you're working from. So if the part of the frame I want to include, if it might be somewhere totally different.
The left part of the frame instead of the right.
It doesn't really always apply. And
do you do much of that in general, or is it usually like a copy paste of the attribute itself?
Usually copy paste attribute. And I feel like I don't know if I would ever do those effects again. Then it's like, oh, it's that gimmick, you know, she's doing that thing. You know, it's nice to do one thing, it's really cool. Let it be. Figure out your next cool thing you're gonna do. And not just kind of always relying on the same tricks.
How much of the overall tone of the episodes is dictated through change in the edit compared to being filmed? I'd say 80% of the season is like how it was scripted and how it was shot and kind of having that vision. But sometimes when you get to the edit, things are working and things aren't. Actually, that's typically how post-production works. And it's
always something.
Yeah, it's always something. And it's our job in post to really finesse what we're trying to say, how the characters are really feeling, and nothing is confusing. So for us, this scene, removing it for a couple cuts and then kind of bringing it back in a later episode really worked for us and really helped push that feeling of now Sam is good again, and now he's kind of back on the wagon.
Right. And this was something that you mentioned yesterday too, and this is only in season 3, episode 8, where typically each kind of vignette ends in black.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very significant, like kind of. I don't know if that's. Is there a name for that sort of technique that people often talk about, where you're just there's no transition. You're really and you linger with it too. You leave it there.
Yeah.
I love when it lingers.
Gotta test the water sometimes.
Test the waters. Yeah.
So yeah, this sequence, it's all, in contrast to the earlier one where he's unhealthy approach to work. There's no effects. You can see we're not using any of the colored footage. It's all clean and light, and yeah, sort of the antithesis of
Same
of the
white
earlier
background.
one.
Again, that's
Yep.
just,
Yeah.
you're right. Obviously,
Yeah.
right. Same exact time frame there.
Aside from smoking, it's all totally healthy.
I do love that too. The like the smile there.
Yeah. And then this was fun. This is like the hacker's shot.
Yeah,
Remember
that was
the overlays. So
Yeah.
this is from a Ableton screen capture.
Right. And this is an example where actually having the screen capture, not the film screen capture, makes sense because
Yeah.
it's not POV anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fixed thing. So, and then we did add some effects to it to kind of make it a little bit softer.
And again, a long push,
Yep.
no cut,
Yeah.
Long
Very
push.
impactful.
very impactful.
200% speed effect as well to just keep it moving.
All right.
And I think the actual shot itself pushes in, so it was a matter of kind of roughly approximating that same push in on the overlay.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to look at the end walkaway?
Yeah, let's look at the end walkway.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And somebody just asked a question, in terms of YouTube search ranking, have you found shorter episodes have hindered your ability to be prioritized? I believe they base it off watch time and not views nowadays. I mean, I don't think that's really hindered us. I know for web series, people typically watch the first episode and it usually has the highest kind of ranking because that's people always test out your show and they either finish the season or they don't. But we have a pretty strong success rate of when people start the season, they usually end up going to episode 2 and then they usually end up finishing the entire series.
Supersonic noise. I'm
Yep,
telling you.
that's
I know you did
secret.
it, Simone.
Yeah.
You're not showing it, but
Yeah, I'm not showing that track.
that audio
Yeah,
track. It's like
way
track
tucked in the bottom.
35. It's
Yeah.
all the way down. You can't see it.
Mind control. Wait.
Cool. So this is our big final scene for That's My DJ. We shot this on a Steadicam in Kensington Market at like 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And that's kind of like the final moment of the series. So yeah, we did this big walkaway shot. And we had our DP running around and running circles like on his Steadicam, and we did that take probably 12 times. He really wanted to nail it. It is obviously more of a cinematic shot, so I wanted to make sure he was happy with his final shot of That's My DJ the series. So I was like, "You want to go run 12 laps? Like, it's on you."
Right. And I love how you really you reintroduce everybody from the first 2 episodes too.
Exactly.
You've got Dead Pixel in there. And,
Exactly.
And Hannah's back in there.
So we have this amazing shot of Lucas who, spoiler alert, passes in season 3. So I was trying to figure out a way that we could kind of bring that shot back to kind of really emphasize like he's on our minds, we miss him, and how much his kind of death impacted Sam's character and his journey. And once we kind of brought this shot back, which we love, we were just like, well, why don't we start bringing back all the best of shots, where it's really kind of like life-changing moments for these characters, and bring them back and kind of show this montage of how we've evolved from season 1, which is very tame and very low stakes, compared to season 3, where it's like the highest of stakes.
And you should know how much it moved me when you cut to the Dead Pixel DJing there, and I was remembering his manager going, "When did you add lights?"
Yeah,
right, because the helmet's blinking in that scene. Right, you have to watch that to get it. But it's really, really good.
Yeah, I think this was another thing that was sort of almost on the eve of lock that we decided to do this. Before that, it was going to be just following him
following him, taking the walk.
This has a lot more impact.
Oh yeah.
And once we kind of added these little moments, like I got choked up in the edit. I was very, because I mean, I saw 5 years of my life flash before my eyes. I think that's what you said to me in the edit. You're just like, how's it like to watch 5 years of your life flash before you? I'm like, it's traumatizing.
It's traumatizing, right?
It's a lot.
Actually, it hurts a little, right?
Yeah, it hurts a little.
Cigar, it's called That's My DJ, and you can Evil Cerise has already plugged the links.
Yes, you can go on YouTube and type in That's My DJ, and seasons 1, 2, and 3 will pop up. Each season is a half an hour, so it's very easy to binge. And you don't have to watch them in order. They follow different characters each season, so you can jump around. So what shall we jump to next? What do you want to jump into next?
Well, so now while we've got you all here too, again, so you're kind of seeing a bit of Simone's process here, and I think really, and some of the things we just talked about, letting a shot linger, basic effects control. I mean, this is a period, and I think this really, again, it kind of speaks to what we were talking about yesterday about you taking this chance of doing super short episodes, which really. Oh, by the way, I was also combing last night to see if I could find any series. That were under 2 minutes. And I found a few things. They were actually usually precursor to this. It would be, "Hi, I'm the director. This is a scene from the thing," and that was a minute. But I couldn't really find any series where those first few were sub 3 minutes. So very original there. Duration. Also, again, the techniques here. We're in a world where everyone is so aware, maybe even desensitized to visual effects. It's just sort of expected. We're on a green screen right now, for goodness sake. I mean, and there's none of that here. And we talked about that yesterday, about using location, shooting in the bathroom. There's a scene, is it season 2 or 3 with Megan where you're shooting up. She's in the bathroom crying.
Yeah, season 2.
Season 2, right? Of course, yeah. And you're shooting up, and I'm thinking to myself, how did you even get the red in there in the first place?
Well, funny enough, that was a bathroom in the bar that we were shooting the fake homebrew at. And it happened to have a red gel on it. And it was so random because we walked in, and it's 3 stalls with normal lighting, and then this one in the corner.
It was
and I was
red,
like, you know what? If this is the reality of the situation and we're not even messing with it, I'm like, I say we leave the red gel up, and which worked perfect.
Oh, it's so powerful. And again, mild spoiler, but I mean, it's a sad moment. It's a very gripping moment. It's a heartbreaking moment, and it's camera angle, it's cutting style, it's staying there. You could have done the from above, from behind, from the side, from this, from that, just kind of moving all over, but you let it linger. And as a storyteller, I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it does. It just moves you, because I think we're so used to, as attention spans are shorter, we're so used to seeing fast cuts. So when something does linger, but it matters. It matters more. As
a storyteller, you kind of have to figure out, what are you trying to say? And you taking that step back, and you should be looking at your scripts first and foremost, because it doesn't cost you money to re-edit a script. It'll cost you money when you're on set or in post-production if you want to move things around. But what are you trying to say? Who's going to win that scene? What is the intention of the characters? So really kind of have your head in that space. Yeah. Actually, a really challenging scene for us that we ended up changing cut on multiple times was the beginning of episode 2, which is the scene that I kind of hated the most, because it was super annoying. Because not a lot's happening. Our lead character is sitting on the couch. He just got his Mac fried. A girl just spilled a beer on it in the first episode, which we showed yesterday. And it's a very simple scene, but it's funny how the simple scenes can get you
Right.
when it comes to coverage or angle or performance.
And sound in that one.
Yes.
You have that sound where he's trying to restore one Mac to the other, right?
yeah.
And you just have that particular sound.
Which kind of saved us,
Yeah.
because before, without those sound effects that Simone was adding in, we were just like, it doesn't feel like there's tension
Right,
here.
right. And that sound gives you tension, because anyone who's ever lost data, tried to restore data, or was having a failure when trying to restore data, it's all about hope. You have
Yeah.
all this hope, and then it's like, that
Yeah.
particular that particular
The death
error,
sound.
that death
Yeah.
sound, right? And you know what it means. He doesn't have to go and break something. I mean,
Exactly.
you just know, like, fail. You know.
Yeah, and when your computer's down, as we all know, it is the most stressful feeling
worst.
ever.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters.
Right. I was just without mine for 2 weeks.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. She's back now.
All right, well, let's play the top of episode 2.
Sure. And just note, this is the version before we had the ADR, so this is still the offline. So you'll see how we showed this a little bit of this yesterday, where you pop in text as sort of a temp thing,
Right.
so when people are watching back, they get what's happening without having the record in there.
Wow, you're early. I think I'm still drunk from last night. Sam? Samuel?
What?
Oh, easy, never mind.
Sorry. I lost all my shit last night.
What shit?
All my shit. Sample libraries, mixes, it's all fucking gone.
What? What did you do?
She spilled beer all over my computer.
She?
Your friend from the party, Becky or whatever. Doesn't matter.
The blonde one?
Yeah.
Well done.
No. Everything I've been working on the last couple weeks.
I'm sorry, man. It's okay, you'll get it back.
And then we jump into, if you want to keep playing it. A nice time lapse.
There's that sound again.
Yeah.
People are saying too, and I'm sure you guys have experienced, I know you have, Simone, for sure, the sheep sound,
Oh.
which is in After Effects and in Media Encoder. Have you ever heard
I
it?
know, I
It
have
is-
not heard that
it is
sound.
it's visceral.
it's
the
visceral,
response.
and
Like your stomach turns.
And it's
yeah.
it's just one of those. I mean, I don't remember the. I knew the story about it at some point because it originated in After Effects, but I think it was like one of the engineers just having a laugh because you'd expect that "duh" or something
Yeah.
percussive, and instead when something fails during a render, it's this horrible sheep sound.
Yeah.
Ooh,
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Which sounds like it'd be funny, except it's never funny.
it's not funny, right? Right, like as an Easter egg, you go, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
awesome.
when you're
It's
trying to
the
get
it's
something
the
done.
end is nigh. You know,
Yeah.
it's really really terrible. And Jackson, yes, this was Red Dragon, I think.
Red Dragon
yeah.
or Red Epic. I
Or
don't
Red
know.
Epic,
It's
yeah.
Red something. My
Red-
DP yells at me all the time for not knowing this
Right.
information. But
Not
I'm
not
busy with
not the red one,
directing.
not the original. Yeah.
Yeah, in the case of this time lapse, we actually have a nest going on in this one because it's a slow push-in across all of these cuts. So, I mean, you could try and do it by keyframing each individual
Seems like a
shot, but yeah, it'd be crazy, it'd take forever, and it wouldn't even be consistent because not every shot is the same length. So, you could go into scale and just, do 10% and then do another like 110 to 115 and so on and so on, but it would never be as perfectly smooth. So in this case, I would have just copied all of the shots after I had this edit here, so you can see it's just jump cutting through, and then made a nest. And in that nest, then applying the push in, so you can see we're starting at 100 and just about slowly pushing in across that entire sequence. And it makes it a lot more interesting to look at than just jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. It just gives that a little bit something extra.
yeah.
The lightning.
Now, okay, so just a question, because again, I noticed this watching too. So obviously, time of day changes here.
Yes. So we set up the camera on sticks, and I kind of walked my actor through a bunch of different things of, what happens when your computer's dead. And, you kind of want to kill yourself. You do everything you can to keep yourself sane, which is
right.
go get food, take a nap, watch TV,
Right.
Get a drink kind of deal. So I was walking him through those actions. We kind of wrapped on that scene, went and shot another scene. And then when we realized it was nighttime, we came back. The tripod was still there.
on
it was in
sticks,
a
right.
very sectioned off, like, do not knock this tripod, so the crew wouldn't knock it over. Put the camera back on, and then walked him through those same steps. So we had a nice kind of like time of day time lapse.
And again,
happening.
naturally done. Could have done it in After Effects, and actually it would have been really easy because it was like blown out. So you could have very easily corner pinned that, stuck a replacement.
a moon or something.
Right. Solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Exactly. Aisha was just asking you, Simone, do you know After Effects too, or do you just stick with Premiere?
I do. I mean, it's a separate part of the brain that I'm not as much of a fan of using. Like, it's very clinical, mathematical keyframes where I'm a lot more gut instinct, and it's just quick to throw stuff on and see if it works and really try around. So, yeah.
And as the director, I imagine, I mean, you have a preconceived idea of like if you need or even want visual effects, right?
Yes. And then it's finding the most skilled people who kind of know that.
Right.
It's all about being a kind of like a leader, which the director is. You want to delegate, and you want to delegate to people who have their strength in editing. So Simone's an amazing editor in regards to like seeing performance and cutting together and having that natural rhythm of telling a story. So that's kind of obviously why I went to her, and we got to work together. When it comes to like that After Effects analytical stuff, you want to go to somebody who really has that strength in After Effects. So instead of somebody who's not as familiar, they're going to bang their head against the wall. It's going to take 3 weeks longer. You maybe can't afford those extra 3 weeks. You know, it's a frustrating situation for everybody involved, or you could kind of find somebody who has the strength and knowledge. You get in, you say what you need. They can also help guide me, who's somebody who hasn't worked in big crazy action stuff yet.
I think that's actually like like the key takeaway too.
Yeah.
Is that if I mean, because I think Aisha especially, it's common more so now, and we talk about this too. Like everyone's playing a little bit of this. You could go into audition too, I'm sure, and do some audio tweaking. But if you hit a wall, hit a block at that point, and you're as a leader and also the one who's kind of questioning things. Poses that question to you, you're like, it's not really my expertise, and then you could do it. It might take you longer, time wasted. Whereas even if you were saying, okay, we need to place more of this budget over here for this one thing because it'll just take less time,
Exactly.
and it'll be right the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's huge to be able to kind of again delegate and define and do.
Play to people's strengths, and even if you are bringing somebody who is new, maybe new to After Effects, but they really want to do it, then making sure you allot that time. So you have that extra 3 weeks to kind of give those notes, be back and forth, be in the room with them. They're learning, you're learning, and kind of knowing that that's a part of the situation.
No, that's because I think a lot of times too. Again, it's just sort of the way I think a lot of things come together, and the way people are sort of creating for YouTube and other things too. I think there's a bit of pressure now that like I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
And and that there's the time and place for that. But in something like this, you there's not just endless time.
Exactly.
And I think it's also cool. I'm a big proponent of saying, no, I mean, I could do that, but yes, it would take me 16 days.
And time is valuable. Time is valuable. I know it's like Simone wants to go on to the next feature that she's working on, or the next music video that she's working on. I have also a bunch of projects on my slate, as we all do. So it's kind of really trying to figure out, do I want to spend more time on this and kind of work through it and learn more, or do I want to work with somebody who has the experience? And then you're also learning along the way.
Very cool. Very cool. And yes, Evil Cerise. Remember, kids, always save and back. You did have your little PSA moment in this whole scene here. Yeah.
It's like
auto save.
Yeah, that's right. She shows the auto
save backup project to Creative Cloud. So if your house burns down, at least your project exists on the cloud.
Yeah.
This is hugely helpful. I don't have to worry anymore. I used to always have to at the end of the day, copy to Dropbox or something just in case. Now I know it's taking care of it. So.
And you were sort of, you talked about this yesterday, about having sort of, 2-3 copies of all the master media, the project files. Again, with that
precious.
It's precious, right?
It's the time and thought you put into something. If that's gone, it may never be the same again.
Right.
So it's critical.
Absolutely.
We could break down some of the sound design in this opening scene. It just kind of fell flat with it's just, him working on a laptop. You don't totally have context. But so for one thing, we've layered in some construction sound to just kind of up the tension a little bit. You know, it's not a
Scott
soothing,
knows
calm day.
Toronto is always under
Yes.
construction
Right.
at
Yeah,
all
it's
times.
authentic.
Like San Francisco, by the
Yeah.
way, if you haven't
Yeah.
noticed. Yeah. Construction everywhere.
So, you know, you might not be able to hear that, but trucks backing up and a lot of commotion. We got a laptop fan running.
So what is expected from an editor in regards to, because I know sometimes people
Right.
chat about editors, they're just kind of cutting together the picture, and this is more of like a sound design kind of thing. Do you want to chat a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it totally varies. There's some editors that are doing 5.1 work in their offline edit, which is that's crazy. Like I know Alan Bell, who cut some of the Hunger Games, and those, he works in 5.1, which is like, that's why you're getting those sweet jobs, because that is a hell of a lot of work. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, you're really dictating cinema at that point.
Yes.
I mean, you're not mixing. There's no reason to really mix 5.1 if really it's meant to be web series.
Exactly.
Or whatever, right?
Like this show never existed at 5.1 and never intended to be 5.1.
And it never will be 5.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's,
What are your thoughts about, you know, like surround, Atmos, you know, 10.2.2, all of this?
I mean, it's something I haven't really been able to play with. I remember when a friend of mine got the Crystal Method CD in 5.1, and we sat in his room and like listened to it, and it was unreal. So listening to an album in 5.1, like that was like its whole experience. And then going to theaters, if it's done well. But I feel like a lot of people, just like with 3D,
I knew you were going to say that.
they
exactly.
just kind of
Yep.
slap it on to get that extra money ticket at the
Well,
theater.
again, and in a theater, it is a prerequisite.
Yes.
So whether it was intended to be that way or not, you can't. There's no. I mean, yes, I'm sure there's some historic theater here in San Francisco, but no new-ish theater today that's playing a digital play a copy that doesn't support a 5.1 playout.
Yeah, but it's like, do we really need to see like Moonlight and like Carol in 5.1? No, they're dramas. Like you don't. The whole drama 5.1 is like, okay, we hear like a car pass like once behind us.
Well, and it's also the. And I find this, I think it's now across all ages too. There was a period, let's even say, I mean, because I think Star Wars was one of the first where there were new theaters constructed to take advantage of that Dolby surround, right?
Yes.
In 1977. The luster of has kind of worn off. I mean, right?
And now we have like D boxes and
Right.
like,
Well,
didn't you just see
I
something?
did 40X, which is the one where the chair moves and
Right.
they're firing water at
Yes,
your face. And,
yes.
Yeah.
You can experience this at Disneyland. By the
Yes,
way.
yeah.
Yes.
Basically, it feels like a Six Flags ride.
So, and someone's saying, please explain 5.1. So basically, it's 6 channels. So it's front, left, and right, rear, left, and right, which are also known as surround, left, and right. And then you have a center, dedicated center, and then an LFE, which stands for low frequency effects, or sub, right? And it's very positional. It's not necessarily spatial, though, right? So now, of course, now that we have VR 360 and ambisonic, which is, again, sort of audio in a sphere, that's not what 5.1 is. You can kind of do that, but it is really more, it's positioning. Again, it's that kind of going to the back of your head, not underneath you.
No.
That's where, like, Atmos comes into play, where now you've got, things rumbling from beneath.
That's
and,
terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
No, and I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's fine to say too. I saw Moana in Disneyland in 4D with Atmos. So not only did I have, you know, and if anyone's seen Moana, there's a lot where they're in a boat on the water. So yes, there's like droplets of water hitting you in the face, which is weird enough, and wind and smells.
Smells, yeah.
4D involves smells. But then, you know, they hit a rock or something and your whole chair kind of goes like this, and it's kind of pukey. I mean...
And it's like, at what point in time is that?
Right, it's kind of like ASMR. Hey, Rachel. Yeah. Yes, it's a sensation which can be spine tingling or nausea inducing. It's I fall more towards the other side of the spectrum.
And for me, it's like, what hand does the director and storyteller have in all of this? When do they want these things to happen? Because for me, it kind of feels like the studio is doing it. So the director leaves, whoever's kind of in charge of the storytelling is gone, and then they're like, okay, well, how can we amp this up? How can we sell that extra $10 ticket?
Right.
We'll just add it here, and then we'll, you know, they throw it at the screen, and that's where it kind of loses it for me. It's like, well, why am I smelling this smell?
Right.
Yeah.
That is sort of funny. Yes, well, it's actually funny because I think there's a few times in Moana where the female character is talking to Dwayne Johnson's character. I think she says something about him being like a stinky man or something.
Yeah.
I was expecting that. Like
Yeah.
for me, for the comic value, I was like, I kind of smell what she's
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah, we didn't smell that. We smelled like ocean water and fish or something.
But when I saw Valerian, it was just ocean on a beach scene. So maybe they only have one smell.
Maybe they only have one smell.
You only saw beach scenes.
Well, and there's again at Disneyland and here in California, they have Soarin' Over California, and it is this kind of, and it's been redone now, and so you're kind of soaring through all various places along the California coast and everything, and you go through beaches and various locales. So again, you smell like the salt, and it's really wonderful. And then you go through
I want to do that.
orange groves. No, this is amazing because you have like beach, oranges, evergreen trees, all these kinds of things, and it's really it's quite something. But it is all about the smell, and they're also kind of pumping in air in there, so as the locale changes, like you're skiing, it gets colder, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
Jumping to, can Simone speak more about editor expectations?
So I'm guessing this is about what's expected of the editor, or how
with
much
cuts
we're
and music and that.
Yeah, I think like one thing I didn't understand when I started out was there's like audio dropouts and things like that, because like, oh, I'm just editing picture, but not really. Like you are telling the story the best way you can with all the tools you have. So I started playing more with sound design and, you know, making sure there's always room tone or something, because it will take anyone, no matter how perfect the picture cut is, if the sound is bad or is dropping out, it's going to distract you. It's going to feel unpolished. Yeah, I think just getting it to as polished as a point you can before you even show your director, because that's just going to influence the initial opinions and decisions of how it's feeling.
Yeah.
So I think the more you can do, the better.
Right.
For sure.
And there is, again, I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying yesterday. It's kind of the trust factor too. Like, you're the story creator.
Yep.
But when you're sitting there, you're the storyteller. I mean, you're really driving.
That's the first audience is the editor.
Right.
Yeah.
You can really mess this up. You know,
it's
right?
a very privileged position
No
to be
pressure.
in,
No
but,
pressure. Don't screw it up though.
Yeah.
All right.
And then how do you record audio for episodes? Boom mics. Yes, so we have a boom mic and a sound recordist on set, and then we also have lavs on each of the actors, so sometimes the boom doesn't get what we need, and we have those lavs that we can go to. Hopefully the lavs are placed properly.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So yeah, I mean that's a little. Obviously, again, that's like DP, good eye, realizing okay, can't see it.
Well,
you know.
mostly a good sound person to
Right,
hide the
that
lavs
too,
and
right,
make sure
yeah.
they're still audible,
Right.
so we can hear the actors, but it's not ruffling against. I know Jade, who's our lead actor, he wears this jacket that I've stolen from him many times, where it's reflective, and it was so noisy,
like scratchy.
So
and,
and we would just his lav was almost unusable, and they're like, "Can he take this jacket off?" And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to make sure you get like a solid boom placement.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something too. I mean, people see the images of people doing like the boom all the time. That's a no joke job.
Oh, that is, and you know what? If anybody's gonna start any career, go into sound on set. You get paid. Crazy money.
Right.
Crazy money. And all.
It's hard.
It's
and
very
it's hard to
difficult
do well. Right.
Yes.
It's hard to do well. Totally. Mm-hmm.
Even on indie sets, the only person, like, I had a lot of people donate their time, not sound. Sound will always get paid no matter what, regardless of the budget. So, moving pictures are the soul, and music is the feeling of the soul. I 100% agree with that. I'm a big fan of film and music kind of complementing each other to create a mood and a feeling.
I was going to ask you that too, both of you, like, because we talk about this a lot. You know, is it a 50-50 match? Do you think sound? And I'm asking this specifically too as a musician.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, IMHO. I mean, yes, obviously the visual, the story, all of that, huge. But watch. And I guess it depends if you're talking sort of like episodic or like a trailer.
Yeah.
A trailer with no sound
is a waste of time.
So it's not a 50-50 split, right?
Yeah.
It's not the visual matters as much as the sound. The trailer it's weighted more towards the sound. I tend to think.
Yes.
Because it has to grab you, engage you, shock you.
Yeah.
But whereas when you're going into the episodes. Is it a bit more balanced at that point, and maybe some scenes it overtakes?
Yeah,
I think
it depends. I mean, That's My DJ is pretty music-heavy
Right.
show.
It's
It's
a music-heavy
about
show.
the music industry.
Right.
So, of course, kind of everywhere we're going, I was very conscious to make sure there are scenes where there isn't any music playing in the background because we need that break as an audience.
Right.
And also choosing when we have that break. So it's like, why don't we hear any music? Because we're really kind of like, what are we saying with that?
Right.
Since it's almost like, front to back music in the show.
Yeah. And because the montages are so music driven, we had to kind of flip the order in that we had to lock down the rights to
Music.
the music before we could picture lock.
Yeah,
Right.
which took a long time.
Yeah, that was one of the major holdups, I think, is just,
Yeah.
it's hard to nail that stuff down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I think too, like, and again, I won't spoil the end, but if you can have people and yourself create the audio content that's going to be in the show, that whole period of waiting and time goes away.
Yeah.
Like, if you can do it.
Yes.
And one of my favorite scenes, again, I don't want to spoil it, but you did that.
You edit based on beats and your edit will be fluid. That is very true. What about scenes with music and talking? Do you play the music in the background? So on set, it's quiet. We don't have any music playing. It's just the actors because we want clean dialogue. And then when we kind of like jump into... Actually, do you want to bring up the bar scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we showed a bit of that yesterday too. And that's also, again, that's where the sound design
Yes.
is crucial,
Yes.
right?
So we want the audience to feel like we're in a bar. The intention for the scene we're about to play is they're in a bar, it's closing up, the music is still playing. But when we were on set, it was obviously dead quiet, so we can get that true audio so we can move it around and get the levels we need.
Mark, thanks for meeting us, man. How you doing? Good, very good. This is DG Lucid, Sam Mark.
DJ Lucid. Oh, that's wicked.
That's what I've been hearing about you.
Dope.
Full disclosure is we're looking for some electronic acts for the local stages at Digital.
Cool.
We're going to build this mini stage out near the campsites. It is going to go off. It's going to be after hours when all the main stages are closed.
All right, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So what's the deal? You got like a team? You got a producer?
No, man. Just me.
Just you. All right. So listen, I love what Lucas played, man. I need to hear the new stuff.
Sure, man.
So as you can kind of hear in the background, you hear music playing, and it sounds like it's coming from like a restaurant speaker. On set, it was dead quiet. So that is all sound design and mixing and making it sound like it's authentic to the scene.
So yeah, if you hear it without, oops. And that's a static.
And that's the actual.
Whisper quiet.
And is the room tone that's in there, is that just the that's the
That's
actual
on-set
room tone? Yeah.
Always get on-set room tone. I've worked with some people who are like, we'll just find a room tone in our sound level. It'll never match. As soon as you're done shooting a scene, you should hold everybody. Your actors should stay on set because they're wearing lavs that you're going to want room tone from as well. And you should hold for at least a minute. I know some people say 30 seconds, but a minute is always better.
More is always better.
Where everybody's just quiet and still, and you get the room tone because it will save you in post-production. And it will really help your editor.
Yeah, because audio like sound editors and stuff, they have ways that they're like, oh, we can make room tone out of this 3-frame clip. I don't have that, nor do I have the time to make that happen. So, and it's also especially critical, as you mentioned, having lavs, because sometimes I'll get room tone, but it's just the boom. So you're still going to hear that shift in the sound of the room when you're going from lavs to only boom.
And if you're cutting like person to person, like here, where the perspective changes, if you only have the boom sound that was on actor A and not actor B, it's not going to work, right? It would change, right? And it would feel weird, like there'd be some hole there. And yes, it can be recreated, but it's way easier and less time consuming.
And sometimes when, an air conditioner will pop on midway through a scene, you want to make sure you're getting the room tone with the air conditioner on and with the air conditioner off. Same with like if a refrigerator pops on and off. Ideally, you're turning these things off so it's one consistent noise throughout your scene, but sometimes you don't have control because you're borrowing a friend's whatever and you don't know and you have to be in and out of 4 hours. So to make sure you have those options.
Yeah. Rand MK, does Adobe have a way to add beat markers if you mark start and tell it the tempo? Sadly, we once did. Today, no.
It's a very sad answer.
You can go to our wish list form, though, and request that coming back. I plug this whenever I can because it's an essential thing that audition used to have, and it's kind of a fundamental thing. And actually, well, we don't. I guess it applies here too. But so one of the things that DW was talking about yesterday, which again, when you watch this, is very significant about this production, is whenever you see the actors, and as you now know, it's quiet on set, right? When you see the actors dancing, there's a lot of scenes in the club where they're dancing. And it always matches. We were joking yesterday about, like, you watch 60s TV and it's always wrong and stuff. It matches because she would give them the tempo, some kind of beat. All right, everybody, here's the. I'm playing it too slow, obviously, but whatever it is. And silence, keep dancing. That's the tempo. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
And then when they fly it back in, she already knows the BPM, and it doesn't matter what the song is.
Yeah, and it's helpful because it's electronic music, so kind of all electronic music is in.
There's a sweet spot for that particular style.
Exactly. Whereas if you're rock music or whatever, it's kind of all over the place.
All over the place.
It's a little bit more challenging.
And yes, Nay, you can use there are After Effects plugins to do that, but nothing unfortunately natively. But thank you, Evil Cerise. Yeah, notice I wasn't even coughing there. It was a long dramatic pause, which I like.
Yeah, going back to this music that we have in there in the environment, kind of looked at this a bit yesterday as well, but applying effects we have, so actually started this project in CC 2015, so we still have our obsolete reverb
right? Okay,
in there,
yeah.
And a low pass, which is just sort of bumping that low end up, so it feels more bassy and distant. Because without that, it's just sort of
play the before after it, because that's really, again, this is something which everybody does if you haven't done this before. Even again here, Simone is sort of mocking it up for the editor, but just to sell the feeling, if you just heard the music as if it were coming off of Spotify or iTunes, it's too clean, it's too direct, it doesn't, it actually ruins the scene. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Full disclosure is we're looking for some electronic acts for the local stages of digital.
Cool.
So it's competing with the dialogue, it's hard to hear, it's just...
Right, well, you can actually hear like the melody discreetly and and high, and it's high end actually, right? So low pass means high cut. So you're allowing low frequency to pass through, high frequencies are cut off.
You can see we're cutting off at around 2800. I believe dialogue is around the 2K.
Yeah, so the sweet spots for dialogue between 1 and 3, exactly,
Yeah, so sometimes I've done that in the past too, where I have a track and maybe it's not what we call diegetic, where it's in the environment and it's score, but I need to hear a line is all EQ just where there's dialogue and just dip that 2K section. So level-wise, it's still more or less the same. It's just the dialogue pops that much more.
Yep. And a good way to remember that, actually, if you want to sort of implement that very technique, it's what in the 70s they used to refer to on graphic EQs as like the smile EQ. You just sort of you drop everything in the middle by a little bit and create that and
pocket.
Have a nice day pocket, and then your dialogue will pop right through over top of that music.
What else we get?
Well, if we want, we can kind of go through, because the beginning of this episode we changed a number of times, and we changed performance a number of times, because we felt our character, there were a couple different ways I was having Jade play this, where he was like angry and upset by the fact that he just lost his computer, which is a fair emotion, but then I got him to kind of play it really discouraged as well, and those are two different things. So if we want to play maybe like the assembly,
open an earlier version.
Oh
yeah.
Assembly. Yeah, it's totally different.
Totally different.
Wow, you are early. I think I'm still drunk from last night. Samuel.
What?
Oh, easy, never mind.
I lost all my shit last night.
What shit?
All my shit. Sample libraries, mixes, it's all fucking gone.
Oh, fuck. What did you do?
She spilled beer on it.
She?
Your friend from the party, Becky, it doesn't matter.
The blonde one? Well done. That's okay. You backed up all your shit.
No. Everything I've been working on the last couple of weeks.
Oh, fuck. It's alright. You'll get it back.
So as you can see, it's very different from what we ended up on. So Simone, do you want to chat
Sure.
why we made some of these decisions?
Well, for one thing, I'm curious what our original runtime. So it was 53 seconds and 14 frames, and wound up being 50. So we didn't even cut out that much, but you'll see the very first shot in the final version. We're hanging on this wide shot for 19 seconds. So instead of hopping around, which the other version was way too cutty, it just makes it feel that much longer because it's just like, oh, why are we seeing so many different angles in such a short amount of time?
And that's like desperation versus anger. Anger would be faster, more frenetic. Desperation is it's just not ending. Right?
Exactly.
When will this desperation end?
And yeah, that version didn't have all the sound design of error sounds, and it just really ups up the anxiety of this isn't working.
This was a scene that really challenged us, and it's funny. Sometimes the simple scenes do. We were really trying to figure out what is the character trying to say. It's our second episode. We really felt the pressure that we need to capture our audience and really kind of bring them into the world of That's My DJ. So yeah, kind of sitting on that wide really helped us. It also is kind of a foreshadow to the time lapse that we're going to jump into at the end of the scene. So there's a nice like bookending style that's going on. Yeah,
we dropped a bunch of lines too. Sometimes, something on the page makes sense, like that's all there. But then once you see the actors acting, it's like they're now non-verbally saying the same thing. You don't need
exactly.
that line.
You cut out a couple of F's in there.
Some backs and forths.
Right.
Yeah, it's generally simple is better, I think.
Simple is always better. Less is more. Someone's asking if I have a color palette for each season. I think I had a color palette for each particular rave in each season. In the first season, I would always call it Red Rave.
I was going to guess red. Yep. Totally.
I love Red Rave. And then like Game of Thrones, I think that year came out with Red Wedding, and I didn't know that was a thing. I was like, oh, cool, I was ahead of Game of Thrones.
You're ahead of the game.
And then season 2 was Blue Rave. And then season 3 I had Green Rave. So I did like the Roy G. Biv of raves, which I was happy with.
Roy G. Biv. Nice.
But yeah, each season has a different tone.
Yeah.
So with those tones, you kind of have to figure out what kind of lenses you want to use, what kind of style you want to use to kind of accent the story you're trying to tell. I knew with this season it was going to be darker, so harsher shadows, maybe like blues and greens, because those are in bruises, which he carries a bruise for the majority of the season. Season 2 is a love story, so I was using a lot of like pinks and reds and very lushy colors. And in season 1, I don't think I was aware of color palette yet, but I was just trying to accurately portray the experiences I was having as a DJ and the parties I was going to.
Right. And you feel that too, actually, especially in that first season. It's interesting now, me sort of going back and reviewing them, there is that kind of, I don't want to say like a pilot feel, but it was kind of the...
Definitely.
Right? It was like the inception, the idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Me trying to find my voice as a director, what I wanted to say. You can see little style things that really work that you can see pulled throughout the series.
That's right. You'll use them later, right? But you were trying little things here and there to see if you could capture just the essence.
That's why I always tell people, watch season 2 and 3. And then if you really want, you can go back and watch season 1. But just maybe skip over that.
But Dead Pixel, I need to see Dead Pixel. Right?
I know, that's true. That's true.
When did you add the lights? I don't know why I love that light so much.
Oh man. Do you want to jump to episode 5 where he's like in the bed and then he has a shower?
Yep. Yeah. So it's probably our most stripped down, simple episode. Yeah, it's short. Yeah, it's
our shortest.
Worth noting, not your only shower scene.
I know.
Wink, wink.
Wink. Plus 18, season 2.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, so just about that actually. So now, so you never have like full frontal. But what I didn't actually know. So what are like the YouTube guidelines with partially blurry, obscured?
I'm not too sure what the guidelines are for YouTube. I think I just kind of did what I wanted.
Went for it.
I just essentially went for it. I mean, in regards to the production, like I had my actor sign nudity writers,
right?
And it was a long conversation to make
Right.
sure they were comfortable. We
Right.
trusted each other. I mean, my intention for this show is obviously not to take advantage of anybody. It is storytelling. I did have like the rights to kind of show what I wanted.
Right.
But when I was in post, again, less is more.
Right.
And I wasn't trying to show anything.
Did you obscure anything in post? Like, did you add anything?
We cut around a lot of it because it wasn't my intention.
Right, it wasn't
in
adding
season
to
2,
anything.
it's about 2 girls kind of like falling for each other and that push-pull. So then in episode 7, which is our most viewed episode, not surprisingly,
Right.
they
Didn't go unnoticed in the YouTube views, by the way. Stumble upon that statistic. Yeah.
I really kind of wanted to pull back so it was more about the emotion of them being together and less about like the POV sexiness from the audience, which I think totally translated.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability to it that you see some movies and people get out of bed and they're wearing a sheet and it's just not natural.
And that was my whole thing. I didn't want the actors to be having these sex scenes and be wearing a bra because that's not real life.
Right.
But I also didn't want to go completely the other way where it's just like, like an R-rated film because I knew at the end of the day I'd be putting this on YouTube. So it was trying to find that in between of to tell the story to really captivate the audience. But yeah, I wasn't really playing within lines.
Yeah. No, and I think too, again, the audience and the not expectation, but the tolerance isn't the right word either. But I think there's an acceptance and tolerance exactly how you shot it today that even maybe 10 years ago people were a little less tolerant.
much.
That was a little right. It would have been almost too much.
But it's also the content, the fact that it's 2 women.
Right.
And a lot of the things, unfortunately, on YouTube have been flagged, and people's YouTube channels have been flagged because it's LGBT content, which for some reason is deemed as inappropriate.
Right.
Which is
Did you have? Were there
crazy.
any flagging of any kind like did you ever receive
Yeah, we got for that episode originally got pulled down.
Right.
And
Okay.
I basically had a heart attack for 24 hours. But I'm pretty sure it was probably somebody who is not, like, is very anti-LGBT who saw that and was like, this should not be allowed, and pulled it. But I wrote YouTube and was like, listen, like, let's put an age restriction on it. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it is the crux of the season, and this is a series. And without that, then you're basically asking me to pull the entire series, and if I'm pulling the entire series, then you can just flush 2 years of my life down the toilet. So,
and they were sensitive to that.
And they were
obviously.
sensitive to that, and they put it back up, and they just kind of put, you have to be over 18 to watch episode 7.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, this is episode 5.
Nice lens flare.
Mm-hmm.
Sam?
Yeah, what's up?
Some guy named Mark just called for you at the studio.
Oh, shit. Did he ask about my tracks?
No, he was looking for Lucas.
Oh. Try his phone.
Yeah, nothing. Have you heard from them at all?
Oh. The idiot's probably still out drinking.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.
All this time waiting, had to keep it on lock.
This is our big sexy scene of this season. Our lead actor Jade is in Shadowhunters, so there's lots of fans, and I was like, this one's for you.
That's right.
The towel placement was key.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the makeup
I
was...
loved this too. Just this whole piece right here.
Yeah. Well, I find in the shower is kind of where you're most vulnerable. So to kind of see there's something about seeing a character in a shower where you kind of see them stripped down, and you can see that this character is really struggling to kind of keep it together, but it's kind of washing away the memory of last night, and and this is a big spoiler alert, this scene.
What's going on?
Lucas OD'd last night. He's gone. I'm sorry.
So actually, this scene where we reveal that one of our beloved characters has OD'd, we cut a bunch of different times, and this was the one scene that we got the most notes on from our peers. They were just like, you know what, it feels a little over dramatic, it feels a little pushed, and so me and Simone really kind of had to put our heads together and figure out how to strip it down and just make it impactful and honest and raw, so we could kind of move on to the next thing. So I'm almost tempted to show them
the older.
Yeah, I'd love to see
cut.
it. Because what my question was going to be, was it more that you cut down the same performance, or was it that you took different performances and sort of picked the best ofs there?
Yeah, I think it was
Combo
more
of
of
the
a stripping down.
Stripping down, yeah.
And moving some elements around to really kind of to pull it down.
Right.
Just seeing some questions kind of pop up. Somebody asked me how I got my start as a director. I went to film school at Waterson in Toronto, actually, and I wanted to be an editor. I actually started out in post-production, and slowly but surely I was cutting things together with all of these other directors, and their footage wasn't lining up. So obviously I was complaining to my friends, and my friend said, well, if you think you can do a better job, why don't you write something and direct it yourself? And I took that as a challenge, and I went and I did a short film and had a great time, fell in love with actors, fell in love with the whole process, and at the end of the day my crew had a really positive experience. So I kind of just kept going from there. And then somebody else, I think, asked if this is something that I just kind of kept on the side for a while. I was pursuing being an editor. I was doing the assistant jobs. But slowly, as I got up in the assisting world, I realized maybe editing is not for me. You're very isolated, you're by yourself a lot of the time, and I'm a very personable person, as you can tell. I like engaging and interacting with people, so I kind of started to think maybe there's something else. And while I was kind of DJing, which I also do, I started to look around the room and be like, wow, this is a really interesting place, and there's so many characters and beautiful lighting and pulsing beats. What happens if somebody, total light bulb moment. And I was like, well, I'm gonna write a web series, which was, a while ago, which was before like web series really kind of started to take off. And then did That's My DJ season 1 and just kind of kept going at it. And now I manage a life as a full-time director and DJ. There is no one path, I would say. I'd say, keep doing what you're passionate about, and just trying to make everything align. And trust your gut. Even if it's a really high-paying job, but you're going to be unhappy, maybe taking something low-paying that you're more passionate about is the better kind of step.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So the very first shot of the scene is actually the feet we wound up using in that later scene of the montage. So we lost it here, used it somewhere else.
Yo, Pete, I need to book some time in the studio. What's happening?
Lucas OD'd last night.
What? Is he okay? Where is he? Where is he?
Sam, he's gone. Sorry.
So the original intention that I had with this scene was Sam is so caught up in what's going on that he wouldn't assume that he would have passed away.
Right.
He just would have assumed that Lucas is an idiot and, ended up in the hospital.
Right.
So on the page it worked. On set it worked, but when we got to post, after you kind of polish everything around this, crucial scene, we realized it wasn't working.
Right. And you're right. You don't. There is there's a gut sadness in the final version.
Yeah.
That you feel immediately as he crosses that threshold
Yeah.
of the door and sees
Yes.
Pete and Megan. Here, you almost don't buy his, where is he?
Yeah.
Right? I'm guessing
Yeah.
that's the kind of feedback that
We're
you see.
kind of, hitting the nail on the head too many times is the kind of the feedback we were getting.
Right.
So we're like, well, he's OD'd. Okay, well, where is he? Well, he's gone. And it's just like, well, it's just like, it should just be
You hear
one
her
note
gasp
and
multiple times.
and be done. So that was our...
Because I think the performances are pretty much the same takes. It
Right.
was just stripping away
anything
anything that wasn't necessary. And really just kind of boiling it down to the key.
Yeah.
key things. So
Yeah, again, less is more.
yep.
Serendy Pandas was asking if you designed the room decorations to fit the characters, because these were also like
Yeah.
your apartment, people's apartments things.
These are
Yeah.
people's apartments. I mean, when you're doing like indie filmmaking, you kind of have to use what's around you. But I have lots of DJ friends. One of them, actually, Brian Atkinson, who is a very talented editor.
Yeah, he's
like crazy talented. And he, you know, does feature films. He also is a DJ.
Okay.
So I asked him if he would kindly let us borrow his house. So he had all the vinyl and DJ gear, and I was like, yes, this is somewhere where Sam would live. So we didn't have to do
A lot of
really
prop
any
work and
set
stuff.
deck. Yeah, I mean, we had to do some in the sense of like just some lighting,
Right.
and when Sam's in his morning period, you know, making sure there was trash everywhere, kind of thing.
Right.
But it was kind of like pre-set for us.
Right.
So that's something that takes a lot of time, is set deck,
Right.
and a lot of money.
And
So
did you say yesterday that Megan's bedroom that's your
That's my bedroom.
That is your
yay!
You'll know what I mean when you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably stuff we could look at in just about every scene here. So, and in the opening, this phone call that exists in here, I think almost all of Megan's lines were rewritten for the
Yes.
final version.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
you know, that's the thing when it's off camera, you could put
That's right, you can put
anything you
anything in
want
there.
Yeah.
So, we did have her doing wild lines, which is when your sound recorders on the day without camera just record separate stuff, which is great for things like this, like phone
Sure.
calls, or if you're in a really noisy environment and you just need something to temp in for the
Right.
dialogue.
Yeah.
So,
Also, you
yeah.
realize new things about the characters when you're in post, when you start to see some of the performances come alive. And what I kind of realized with Megan's character is she's not too concerned about Sam, and she's kind of treating Sam like, okay, like, you don't have your shit together, but I don't care.
Right.
So this
She's
interaction,
dismissive, yeah.
she's dismissive. So this interaction I found was too casual. So when we went back into ADR, I got Emily to kind of be a little bit more aggressive and fast-paced, and,
Right.
and be like, what, you're still in bed?
Right. And I thought, I mean, I remember, doesn't she say, and don't forget you have a session in an hour?
Yes, she does. So putting in, you're very smooth. So putting in
Knew something was
information
missing.
that, you know, puts pressure on the character.
Right.
Like that.
And the reason I distinctly remember that too, is because at the end of that scene, he goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
And you're like, but you gotta be at the session. And
Yeah.
again, I was like tense.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Which you want to make your audience constantly on the edge of.
And she's very dismissive when she says that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have
Like,
your stuff
get it together.
That's right, get it together.
And
Right.
you can kind of tell he's like taking his time in the shower, and like then he sees that there's calls missing. So
Right.
hopefully there was like a misdirect
that's
to
right.
be like, well, he's just gonna get in trouble when he goes to work, and then he gets to work, and then he gets the
Exactly.
news that Lucas has OD'd.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions. My background is editing too. Is there any advice you would give to aspiring directors? I would say just start writing and shooting. You know, get your friends, I mean, you can find actors. There are so many people who want to be in front of the camera.
Right.
So setting up a casting or asking around of who they think is talented, union or non-union, and just kind of doing it and going through the entire process. The fact that you started out in editing gives you a total upper hand because now you understand post, and kind of keeping that in mind. But it's all about finishing the short piece, whether it be a piece for Instagram or YouTube or for festivals. It's about finishing it and taking a step back and, you know, is this something I want to release
Right.
or not? Even if you don't, it's a learning experience. But yeah, I think writing is a huge key to kind of getting off the ground.
Yeah. And I like that you said editing too, because again, that's writing is obviously the sort of the fundamental, but ultimately where you kind of understand timing, pacing,
Yeah.
sequencing, you get that from actually cutting it. Right?
Yeah, and I see a lot of really talented people, at least in Toronto, in the industry that I'm in. You know, they put together these scripts, they get a great DP, they get all these awesome actors, they shoot it, and they're like, yeah, this is great, they pop champagne, and they think they're done. But really, what they don't realize is the hard part just began.
Right.
But they're usually exhausted from, like, you know, gathering the money and doing pre-production. But to know your post flow, to hire your editor before you go to camera is so important. To hire your sound team, to hire your colorist, like really spend pre-production making sure you know what happens and setting deadlines. So important in post. Without them, nothing will happen.
That's right.
And then
And
I
3
know
months will turn into 9 months.
I had a friend who, you know, their film was in post for 3 years. It's hard to stay passionate about something for 3 years. I had another friend whose short film never ended up being finished because it sat in post-production for a year, and by that time nobody kind of really wanted to finish it anymore, and they had moved on to other projects. So coming up with deadlines in post to hit.
Guilty of the latter. And that's the thing too, I think, is like artists and creatives in general. If you don't kind of set the, like, what's the end game, the goal, the duration that you're willing to allow, it's not only do you lose the passion, but you may have moved on to something else entirely, or you're just like, I'm over this. I wouldn't even, I can't even use this now because I would shoot it. I would have written this differently a year later, 3 years later.
Because you grow so quickly as an artist.
Right.
Dead mouse. What qualities do you think make an editor talented? Do you want to answer this, and then I will answer this?
Sure, yeah. See if we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of things, and that's why it's a hard job. It's not just pacing, it's not just performance, it's not just story, it's all those things working together. So and then there's also the interpersonal element, where you're working with other people. There's some really talented editors that are just, the social side is tricky, and it's hard
tricky.
when you're working with someone in the room. Like, you kind of need to be best friends that also happen to be editing something.
Yeah.
Those are the best relationships.
And that's kind of something that can go across all categories when working with people. At the end of the day, when you're casting or working with a DP or anybody, you kind of have to sit back and you're like, do I want to spend the next 2 years with this person, or do 2 weeks with this person? Do you think under pressure they're going to turn into a crazy person, or will they be calm, cool, and collected? But that's something to really ask yourself, because sometimes you're like, wow, they're so great. Oh, they seemed really freaked out by the fact that, their bus was late. Like, that put a lot of stress on them. So it's like, well, if they're freaking out about their bus being late, what happens when,
when Dropbox is slow, or
when Dropbox is slow, or there's a power outage, or you
Right.
lose one of your actors a day before a shoot? You want people who are kind of going to be calm and problem solve and work together as a team.
I think that's it. It's problem solving.
Yeah.
Like I think every step, editing, the directing, all of these elements, there's an element of problem solving.
Yeah.
And you can't solve problems if you're like, right, just I mean, maybe you can,
Exactly.
but not efficiently. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And some people, I guess, do thrive on that, yes, but you wouldn't want to bank on that
Yeah.
at the start.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And for me, what I look for in an editor is somebody who listens, so who can, like, kind of not just like listen to me, but like listens to our notes from our peers, myself, listens to the footage, but specifically somebody who knows how to read a really strong performance. I think it's, you have to understand what a good performance looks like to be able to cut it, and then to have that natural rhythm.
Question for you, Simone. So having said that, how long do you think it takes to sort of craft that, like,
I don't know.
hearing, seeing the good performance and knowing?
I feel like there's always room to grow, for sure. But I mean, it's hard to say, because some of it is just the sort of innate empathy that either you have, or
you don't.
Maybe it takes, or maybe you never will. Maybe it takes some time.
No,
but it's just like understanding human beings and social cues and things like that, and knowing how to pick up on what feels real and what doesn't, based on like your own experience as a person interacting with people in real life.
Like if you're cutting that scene and, like you said, it feels contrived or just like too on the nose, right? You also have to be like, oh yeah, that's
and know the why, so you
know
don't
the why, so that you
do
can
that.
communicate that back, so it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Something that I've kind of have in my like tool belt of working with editors, which I find really funny, and I told you this at the end of working together, is for directors, listen to your editors. They know your footage better than you. As much as you like to think that that's not the case, they do. So sometimes you remember something from set, you think you have it, you think you have another option, and I'll go to Simone and say, okay, well, let's try this, and your editor will turn to you and say, well, I've tried it and it doesn't work. And trusting your editor in that moment, depending, and like choose your battles. If it's something you really, really think, no, we need to go over it, maybe you have a different solution, you can open it up. But more times than not, your editor has tried it, and you're gonna waste another hour kind of going back into it. But the tail sign that I always use, if your editor, who's usually facing a desk away from you, does like a half turn then it's cause for, I know you think this is so funny.
That also was, by the way, that was very skilled the way you just did that.
If they do a half turn to talk to you and be like, yeah, I've already tried that, it seems to be more of like a conversation. That means that they've tried it, but there might be some possibility. If they do a full turn chair,
right,
and they're like, no, like this is how I feel, that means they're really passionate and they for sure know. And it's kind of, again, reading the body language of your editor to be like, okay, half chair, we can jump into it. Full chair, like I'm gonna take their word for it, and we're not gonna jump into it.
And that applies to sound mixing too. As someone who used to do that too, it's kind of like if the director's behind you and they're asking a question, and you're at the desk and they ask you something and you don't turn, you're staying focused. That's basically a sign that we can work with this.
Yeah.
If it's kind of the push away. Yeah. It's a bad sign.
Yeah.
That's like
it's funny, the little things.
They're subtly different, but it's kind of the same,
Yeah.
The push away.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about the choosing your battles as an editor, because ultimately we're here to bring the director's vision to life. It's not about us. So leave your ego at the door. It's not the editor's show. Like we are here to take what you've already done and shot and your intentions and make them even better. Yeah, it's a team.
And that's part of choosing your talent. Like,
exactly.
If it is an ego show, this is the wrong connection.
Yeah, right? And it's always good to, watch people's work. I know you were saying kind of in the Uber yesterday, how somebody gave you like a sample scene to cut. And I was like, what a waste of time. All they have to do is go watch your past work to see if your style. Yeah. And to be like, okay, well, clearly she's talented. Like, it doesn't take takes 2 seconds to realize that. And then kind of call other people on their resume, see how they are to work with, and then meet with the person. Yeah. And it's taking the time. So.
Yeah. And I guess that's factored in time too.
Yes.
Like, how much time are you going to let something go? Like, they're fantastic, but they're so full of every frame that like, can you deal with this for 24 episodes?
And think about how long you're going to spend with them. If it's a DP and it's a 9-day shoot, that's probably like 9 days of shooting plus what, like a couple days of prep. You might be able to just deal with it. And you're like, well, they're really talented. I'm going to deal
2 weeks. I'm good. Right.
But editors, man, those are the people you really want behind your back. Those are the people you should treat the best, in my opinion. Editors and actors. My DP's like, no, it should be me. I was like, whatever.
She just said, she goes, that's so funny. I do that, but didn't realize I do the half chair.
Yeah, we all do it. We're all
right?
guilty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's the just that.
Yeah.
That's like, all right, they're off the project.
Yeah.
That's an obvious one.
Somebody was like, what is the intention for That's My DJ going forward, Netflix or a movie? I would love to see That's My DJ keep going, whether it be a season 4, as I know you really want a season 4.
Yeah.
So maybe looking for that kind of investor to kind of come in and bring the production value up for a season 4, or whether that kind of be going and turning it into a TV show altogether, which I've been back and forth from LA chatting with people. So we'll see what happens, but deals they take time.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a great question though. So now, again, to look at this on any screen, I'm not. So how would you envision upping the production level?
I don't know, because I agree with you. It looks really good.
Just jibs. I always
I'd love to have a jib or a crane, or have some really large party sequences.
I was gonna say in one of the venues, and you just got that that tracking.
But also being
shot
able to pay people would be nice for all the people who have donated their time and believed in me. And guys, at the end of the day, like, I started out as all of you are, and I wasn't that confident as a director, as I am now, but it really, it's about doing it and kind of finding your ground, and having the amazing people in my life who have supported me and be like, no, you're really good at this, like, we're going to help you out. That's been a huge blessing.
And I think that's great too, like, as you just said, like, you wouldn't necessarily change the look of it, it's more the people involved would actually just, they too get to take a bigger part in really being being a piece of it in a different way.
Exactly. And the people that I have worked with, we were all at the same level.
Right.
And it's, again, I said this yesterday, a tide raises all ships. So they get a piece for their demo reel, I get a piece for my demo reel. We build something together that's really amazing, and then we run into the industry and be like, hey, look what we can do. And then hopefully we all book jobs. And that's exactly what has happened with each season of That's My DJ. My DP is booked solid. My actors are booking all the time. My production...
producing right now,
Emily, Emily produced the last season of That's My DJ, and she's in the new season of The Girlfriend Experience. She's, you know, in the new season of Killjoys. She's booking her face off. So, you know, it really does take a village. But it's you can do it. You can definitely build it.
All right. Well, we've got about four minutes to go until we've got Andrew Embry coming up with Mr. Paul Tranny. They'll be walking in the studio momentarily, doing some really awesome animation stuff. Again, so now what can we expect for tomorrow?
So tomorrow we're gonna dive into episode 6, which was an episode that really pushed me as a director. So this is the episode in which our lead character is mourning the death. So I really wanted to approach it in more of a cinematic feature film way, and I think we did 44 setups in a day, which is
open that because it was
insane.
When you look at slates, you know, in the American slating, it'll be a letter going with each setup. Where once you hit Z or Z, as in Canada, you come back around to AA.
That's right. I was gonna say AA. BB.
So I think
exactly.
let's see how far we got there. I guess it was scene 1. Nope. Right, it was originally episode 7.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, Z. So yeah, we went to AE. So that's all 26 layers plus whatever 80 you use.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think we were doing other pickups for other episodes in that. So it was a full day, and I really my goal as a director was kind of showing the stages of mourning when you isolate yourself in an apartment.
And this is a super intense.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode is like, it's
and I
really
think it pushed myself as a director, pushed my actor, it pushed my DP. How do we make an apartment look different from shot to shot to shot to shot to show kind of like a transition of time. And then also in post-production, it's like, when are we going to use fade to blacks? How are we going to show that transition of time without kind of just putting up a word that says like day 2, day 3, day 10. So yeah, because
it goes through, it's 3 weeks or something, right, when he finally...
Yeah, it's about 3 weeks.
2-3 weeks, yeah. And that too, that's like, as you're watching it, you should go watch it right now. The whole time I'm calculating in my head, just based on, because you're right, time of day and such, that's one thing, but you're sort of actually trying to create that there's some deterioration going on.
And he starts to spiral and lose his mind.
Right. And you know this isn't 2 days.
Yes.
Right. You know, anyone who's ever grieved, obviously there's a duration here. So it was really interesting how you built that and made and delivered that feeling without some kind of, you know, week 3, you know.
Exactly. And then also being conscious of, he has this big bruise on his face that we're recreating. So at a point in time, I had to be like, okay,
it's kind of got to be
smaller,
almost
it's
gone.
bigger.
Right.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're in our last minute. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, DW. No. And of course you can. No, I meant to ask you, Simone. Are you on Twitter as well?
I don't really use it much. Kind of retired.
Kind of retired.
I have a website, SimoneSmithEditor.com.
SimoneSmithEditor.com. Okay, and of course you can follow DW Waterson at HeyDW_X.
Yes.
On Twitter, on Instagram, and you can find That's My DJ, of course, on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, talking about episode 6 and showing again the dark side of...
The dark side.
You know,
how to create tone and mood in an episode.
That was me holding my fictional lightsaber. That did not translate. That was an epic fail. All right, coming up now, we've got the amazing, the one and only Andrew Embry with Mr. Paul Tranny. So stick around for that one. We will see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. All right.